Hello!
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back to our podcast where we talk about our favorite ships. Just kidding, no. That's why we call ourselves Shipwreckers, because we like wrecking ships. Like, I feel like in the past couple episodes we've done, Jason has had a rant about why he hates a certain ship. So,
well, I mean, our first episode was Finn and Rose. It's like we haven't gotten into... We
you haven't heard the big shipwreck yet.
The big shipwreck.
It's coming. Today we're talking about, as you can see, the Game of Thrones television series, which is a really popular show. And we're just doing it now because I just finally convinced Jason to watch the entire series, and he did watch it. He watched like the entire series in 2 weeks. Congratulations.
I was going to say 3 weeks, just so people think I have a little bit of a life, you know.
Maybe I'll edit it out.
Thanks for.
Okay, we'll try something else.
That. All 22 people who watch this know I have no life now, Joseph.
15. I watched it 8 times.
I watched it 3 times. Okay, all 12 people who watched it.
All 4 people who watched it. We both, let's be honest, we both watched our first episode probably about 10 times each. Anyway. All right.
Okay.
All 4 of you who are not us. Hello. I'm just kidding. Okay, let's just get started. So,
hi, Chris. Hi, brother.
We're just going to, I mean, this is like nothing new, but the thing about this show, we want to kind of make this clear. Like, it's, hopefully it'll come to a point where you're watching this because you know us or because maybe you like our personalities and like hearing what we have to say. That's why,
a long shot.
It is a pretty long shot. Maybe that's why there's only 2 of you now. That's why I like watching reviews.
You in the first minute of the show.
So we're not trying to make this like a super nuanced, like, must-watch Game of Thrones review. It's just like our personal reactions and responses to the show or to whatever book or movie or TV show that we're talking about. So that, I don't know, I just felt like I needed to put that out there. So we're going to just start this episode. The main thing we're going to talk about, the big chunk of this time, will be spent talking about mainly what makes this show great, but even more specifically, kind of what sets this show apart from other good shows. Now, yeah, we both have our own thoughts on that. And I guess we'll just go ahead and begin by introducing or by talking about our general thoughts or reactions or responses to the show. And we'll start with Jason, whose reaction is the freshest.
Yeah, after having binge watched the show in a 2-week period, all 7 seasons of the show, I can firmly say I am not in a very emotionally stable place at the moment. And that would be my general thoughts on the show.
I didn't warn him about some things, so...
Yeah, it's funny. You texted me to be ready for the Red Wedding like 30 minutes after I finished the episode.
He was curled up in a ball.
I'm just like, thanks for the...
And he heard his phone chime.
Yeah. Thanks for the heads up, douchebag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and luckily, going to already knew Ned Stark was dying.
Oh yeah,
and
that was an early one.
Like, I think I had heard like he didn't make it to the end of the first season, so I was just kind of happy he made it through 9 episodes.
Through most of it, yeah.
Through most of it.
He was great.
But yeah, if I didn't know that, I don't know if that would have been hard to see.
It's like every season has a moment where you're like, I'm gonna stop watching this show. Like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah, probably the biggest one for me that was the Red Wedding, just because I was like, I don't know how the show's gonna continue on after that, but. You know, the show's so good, It does find a way. So I guess my main thought would be, you know, the show is just always keeps you on the edge of your seats. All the fastballs it throws at you. You never know what to expect next.
Totally. Yeah, good. And I mean, I don't have too much of a different general thought on the show, but, you know, I started watching the show 2 or 3 years ago. I binge watched up until season 5. At the time, that was the last season that was out, and then I watched season 6 when it came out, and then I watched season 7 this year when it came out. Or I guess that's last year. Oh my god, we're still in 2018 now.
2018 just started.
We are just now in 2018. So Shipwreckers was born in 2018. Anyways, so yeah, with the show, I mean, I can't really say too much different about it. It was a show that I found was entirely gripping. I do really personally like fantasy type shows, and I kind of the whole like for lack of a better description, like, I don't know, medieval or, you know, like that kind of I don't know, political type drama doesn't generally interest me, but this show, you know, did it so well because, you know, the characters. I mean, that's something that I said with Star Wars. That's something that's true about any good show or good story. The best stories have the best characters, and that's what this show is all about, is amazing characters. So amazing characters and amazing lore. That's going to be my 4 words on this show.
That's
5 words.
It's kind of interesting. Like, that can be my one kind of like critique of the show.
Oh, we're going to debate.
Is
the master debaters.
all the political stuff was really good, and that's obviously the key of the show. Going in, I think I was expecting a little bit more fantasy elements to be present, especially from the beginning. 'Cause, I mean, it takes a while for us to get to the actual fantasy elements. I mean,
it really builds the show. Kind of works its way towards that.
The dragons and the White Walkers are two of the main things, and again, like we still haven't. It's really only the last season that the dragons really kind of started playing a much bigger role. And same thing with the White Walkers. And before that, we just had a few instances of like magic being used, mostly like the light people, Lord of Light people.
Oh yeah. The religion, Relor is
one of the crazy religious cults in the show.
one of them.
But
it gives us Melisandre, so.
So going in, I think I was expecting more fantasy elements to be in there, and I'm a big fan of fantasy stuff, and so I was a little disappointed it was less, but I don't think it took away from the show.
Sure.
Obviously, the political intrigue and stuff was really good.
Yeah, it's very, very well done. But like I said, the bulk of this discussion is going to be focused on what we feel makes this show distinct, makes it worth watching, makes it different than other quote-unquote fantasy or political or, those types of dramas or shows.
Or even how other shows that like do some of the same things, not specifically like plot lines or fantasy-wise, but like some of the things that we'll get into later. Like Game of Thrones just does it a lot better than a lot of the other shows. And the first thing we kind of wanted to get into was sort of the world building or the lore behind the show. I think you had a little bit more to say about this than me. Also having read the books and knowing a lot more of that background and history and the inspiration the author had for all this.
Yeah, that's something that I was going to say was I have read all the books. Jason has not. I'm trying to get him the same kind of deal with the show where he's like,
there's talk about the book never being finished.
Yeah. There's a very real chance the series, the book series, is never finished. And of course, that's a big deterrent for him ever touching these books, ever looking at them.
If you think Supernatural scarred me, how do you think Game of Thrones would do?
Yeah. So I know, all this stuff, the backgrounds, the histories. I know a lot more about that, and I'll try to fill that in. I'll try my best to restrain myself from saying the phrase "in the books" as much as possible.
We're gonna try to put like a counter up there.
We might put a counter every time I say it, like in an actual sentence. But
if you people out there want to manually count it too, go right ahead.
You can play a drinking game. Maybe you can make a bet, make a guess for how many times I'm going to say that. I'll do my best to not.
Every time he says it, take a drink. Every time I go on a rant, take a drink.
Yeah, that's going to be our.
We probably shouldn't condone that. That'd be way too many drinks. People can get alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, we're gonna kill some people. Anyways, unintentionally is what I mean. Okay, so. The big thing with this is, I think from what I know of the author, I do believe he is a history person, like someone who studies and is very intrigued by real world history. And that really translates really well into the show, into the books, of course. I said into the books.
Take a drink.
Take half one. And then, of course, that definitely translates to the show. But this is a world that's very deep in its histories and its lore. Every big house has such a rich background, has its own histories, has like looking at the histories of this world and how the different houses kind of intertwine. There's tension between these two houses because of this thing that happened all these years ago. Stuff like that. It's just that really carries over to the characters and the world, and it can be a lot to take in if you're watching this for the first time, but once you kind of really dig in and get into the show and go back and maybe look things up like that, or even read the texts on which the show is based, I think that it's really, really rewarding. And so that's a blessing and a curse for it, because it's a blessing because it just contributes to this really amazing and deep world. And it's a curse because it seems to be the case that the author has dug himself very deep in a hole where he has to fill in a lot of plot lines, a lot of different characters, and good luck to him, I'd say. Yeah, because you mentioned that besides the main Game of Thrones books, he has other series just going back and explaining more histories about some of the older families, like the Targaryens. But that is like one of the strengths of the show, and it doesn't just like give you all this information in the first couple episodes of the season, because that'd be way too much information. Sure, yeah.
But it does a good job of like slowly, like kind of almost like it forces you to like make your own assumptions about some of the stuff, and then it kind of fills in the gaps later on. Yeah,
and it also is never okay or never afraid of turning things on their heads and like really pulling. I'm going to try not to use so many cliches here, but pulling the rug out from under you, like it kind of establishes things that you might expect about characters or things, and then it just kind of completely does what you don't expect.
Like the perfect example would be finding out John's real
mother
and father.
And the show even does a great job of because all the characters in this show, all the characters in this world firmly believe that John is just like a bastard or he's like Ned's son, And of course, by the end of it, we find that not only we as the audience were wrong, but many of, if not all of the characters in the series were wrong. Like everyone was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's, another thing that's a really big revelation.
And I'm assuming it was planned. It wasn't just
maybe I'll make him.
maybe I'll do this thing. For the last season. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he started with that. If he started with maybe the idea of a character who starts from pretty much nothing, like you could say not the lowest of the low, because he is a bastard.
He's better than 99% of the people in the universe.
Yeah, he is a bastard in this show, but he also is a pretty well off bastard. Like he grew up in one of the biggest, so he's not at the lowest of the low, but he starts out low, right, and then he kind of really works his way up, and it's all on him. Like he grows as a person and as a character. And okay, we're gonna do it because
we're actually gonna do a couple different episodes.
Yeah.
This episode's just kind of good. Like I said, a general kind of series overview, and our next episode
will be more specific.
Maybe
about characters.
One more. I don't know if we're gonna need more than one, but we're gonna dive deeper into each individual character.
Let's be real. I could do an entire podcast series dedicated to this world and series. So
please don't.
Please don't. Yeah. So, anyways, with that being said, I mean. World building very well done, lore and history just excellently done to the point that it's a fault of the world because again, we're nowhere near the end of the series in the books and who knows if we'll get there.
Yes. And so that will bring us to our next main point about why this show we feel distinguishes itself is the deaths in the show. The main character deaths, the secondary character deaths. The show does it in such a way that even when the main characters die, like Ned Stark in the first season, the show doesn't degrade in quality after that. I mean, how many other shows out there actually even kill off the main character, or
sure,
or even the ones that do, the show doesn't go down in quality afterwards?
Harry Potter did it first.
He doesn't stay dead.
Neither does. Okay, let's.
Ned stays dead.
We're gonna have a Harry Potter versus Game of Thrones debate.
Okay.
Dead Stark.
Sorry. Is that an actual thing?
No, I just made that up right now.
Okay. And not only do the main characters deaths it doesn't. The show keeps going on. It doesn't get worse, but it actually makes the show better. Just because after Ned's died, after the Red Wedding, when Rob and Catelyn die, after seeing so many deaths,
by the way, spoilers.
It really sets up whenever your favorite character, if they're still alive at this point, whenever they're in some situation, you're literally on the edge of your seat, scared for them.
Yeah.
My favorite character at this point is probably John, and every every single scene, I'm scared for him.
He steps outside. He makes himself a cup of coffee. You're like, no, John, be careful, don't.
I have to pause, take a few deep breaths. Because normally, in a show like this, you want your character to get more screen time, but when all of a sudden your character gets more screen time, it's no, go to someone else. Go to someone else.
We've seen what happens when characters are the main, and it also does a good job. Once Ned dies, you're like, okay, this is all about Rob now. Rob is the new kind of main dude.
That's the assumption that you make. Yeah.
And then okay.
And we saw how that turned out for everyone. And so, like I said, it just adds so much suspense to every scene. And even the way the characters die, it happens at the most unsuspected times. They don't die in season finales. They don't die in season premieres. Both Rob and Catelyn and Ned Stark, I think, died in episode 9 of the seasons they died in.
Yeah.
And Joffrey, he died, I think, in episode 2. So it's not just most shows, if they do some major death,
they use it as a
cliffhanger for the end of the season, or they do it in the premiere to get people introduced or to get them excited for the new season. And I really like the way they do it. I'm going to refer back to Supernatural, is just because that's another show that has a lot of main character deaths, but the thing is the main characters, they don't stay dead in that show. Each main character has probably died 3-4 times at this point and always come back to life, so there's no weight behind when they die. It's okay, well, how many episodes until they come back? That's literally all you're asking yourself. They're not staying dead. And the other thing they do is they kill off basically every secondary character
in the Supernatural.
So it's again, you're not. It's like, oh, this character's cool. And
so
then, like,
dumb.
when they die, you're not just like, no. It's like, well, okay, we knew that.
We knew that was going to happen. Like,
There's very few characters that have been in more than like 1 or 2 episodes that are still alive.
oh my god, I haven't watched Supernatural.
Spoilers for Supernatural.
We're just crossing all the
I didn't
streams
put
here.
names in there though, so who knows? Whereas Game of Thrones, like, the deaths are spread out enough, so it's not like, okay, I'm just waiting for this person to die. It's always done in a very emotional, unique way. Yeah, the other thing is, like, one of the last things we happened in season 7 was they killed Littlefinger, and that entire season you're kind of building up to this conflict between Sansa and Arya, where they might have to kill each other, one kills the other, and because everything that's happened in the show, all the bad stuff that's happened, all the kind of bad things that some good characters had to do, you legitimately think it's possible for Sansa to kill
I did too,
to kill Arya, or maybe Arya feels like she has to kill Sansa, and it just makes the twist all that more satisfying when also Littlefinger, this character who you probably hated for a long time now, also, I mean,
he betrayed Ned, like he's one of the big reasons. I mean, he started the entire series of the show, like, because him and Lysa wrote the letter to Catelyn about
they killed Jon Arryn.
So
he's the reason Ned went to King's Landing.
He probably should be everyone's most hated
enemy. Yeah, and you don't see his death coming. You think it's about to turn very bad for the Starks, your favorite characters. I'm assuming favorite. I mean,
they're the generally like
the good guys of the series, and all of a sudden, just like that, it flips to this great scene. So just like the show can have it, like, you think it's a happy ending, like the Red Wedding. Oh, okay, there's this happy celebration, all of a sudden, bam, it switches just like that. The opposite can be true. It's this bad thing that switches, and all of a sudden very
Littlefinger gets killed. Joffrey is acting like a true, I don't know what you want to call
buffoon.
Him, like buffoon. That's very, putting it very lightly.
Very lightly.
In his wedding, the way he's acting, and then
even Marjorie, who's always very good at hiding her emotions, at manipulating people. Like, even she, like, gives him some very distasteful looks during the wedding. Like, she can't even handle it.
He's at some of his worst during his wedding, and then you're like, you can't hate him enough. And then what happens? He dies, and
it's almost unsatisfying. So you're just like, wait, did he just die?
Jason didn't believe it. He couldn't believe it for a second.
Especially since a lot of other shows, like, someone, like, you think they died in an episode that comes back. Next episode, it's like all of a sudden they're alive somehow.
Sure,
and someone's like, okay, click next episode. I actually think I was planning to go to bed after that. So I'm like, one more.
This is one of the shows that you probably shouldn't watch before bed, because you're gonna be like, it's gonna be like 1 a.m. and you're gonna be like, okay, after this episode I'm going to bed, and then Joffrey dies, or Tyrion gets accused of his murder, or Oberyn, and you're just like, no, I need to see what happens next.
All right, next point is I really feel this is like a downfall of a lot of shows, is when you have all the characters that Game of Thrones has, it's very hard to make every single storyline as interesting as the next. I felt like, I don't think I talked about this too much in our last Jedi review, but I felt that was one of the weaknesses of the show, was you had all these characters and you're trying to give them all their own storylines.
I think you mentioned that to some degree, yeah.
And my favorite storyline, that was, obviously the Luke-Rey storyline.
If you haven't already, go check out episode 1. Even if you have, go watch it again. It's pretty good.
And
we're good.
Yeah, exactly. And so when Luke and Rey aren't on the screen, and we have like the other 4 or 5 characters, storylines that we're following, like, I'm bored. I'm just waiting for them to get back to what I do most important. Whereas Game of Thrones, like, we don't have that. Like, yes, we have all these different characters that we follow, but they find this, I don't know how they do it, but you're just drawn into each story,
Samuel Tarly.
Except for him.
I just threw a roadblock in his... Okay, sorry.
Besides Samuel Tarly, you're legitimately...
You're engaged in the storyline.
Engaged in every storyline. And
that's very true.
You're not just waiting to get back to your favorite character. Even though I do want to get back to my favorite character. Like, as soon as it goes away, like, I almost forgotten about that storyline. I'm just completely involved in whatever's happening in front of me at the moment.
You're generally intrigued with Cersei, even though you probably hate her too. You get very interested in what she's doing. But yes, you're even interested in Cersei. You're interested in Tyrion. You're interested in... I mean, maybe you're not interested in Theon, but, like, you kind of want to see what's going on with this whole storyline. It's pretty tough to watch sometimes, but you're kind of like, okay, well, what's going to happen with this whole kind of deal, with all of it, the entire thing, and then there's the Samuel Tarly storyline,
which is the one downside of this show.
I'm kind of glad we can hate on this. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get to that. Do not worry. We'll get to Sam and Gilly.
There'll be plenty of hate there. It's coming. Don't worry.
Every unique storyline contributes either to the character's growth, which it should, or to the larger narrative of the whole series.
Yep.
And so if it does either of those things, it's successful. And of course, there are, I think, season 5 onward, there are some storylines that can be.
You could probably put in that category.
Yeah, where it's like, and of course, as someone who's read the books and understands the general fandom's reaction to certain things. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't resist it for that. I had to for that one.
Do I have a rant yet? Were any of those considered rants? I don't know.
No, not for you. No.
Okay.
But yeah, so there are certain things where if you've put your eyes to the pages of the texts on which this show is based.
I think that still counts.
It probably does.
Can't finagle your way out of this with fancy language.
If I try to fancy it up, you have to take 3 drinks. Okay, just kidding.
Oh God.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, but certain storylines, we won't get into them too much there. But I also am really interested here to see like Jason's reaction of the series in general and certain storylines, because it does seem like there were certain things he didn't really mind so much that a lot of other people, and maybe even in certain areas, myself included, were like, oh, that's pretty dumb, but he maybe didn't, and that's good to see. I like that. I like that exists.
Do you want to give one example of that?
In retrospect, the whole Sansa storyline, just because yeah. Sorry. I don't know. And sorry, by the Sansa storyline, I mean specifically only in season 5.
Oh yeah.
Only in season 5. Her entire arc is fine, and I like her as a character, but that specific season 5 with Ramsay.
And I'll say it, so I don't think this counts as a drink for people, but in the books,
I almost spit out my water.
Sansa, you said, doesn't actually. She stays in the Vale the entire time. She doesn't go to Winterfell and marry Ramsay Bolton.
No, not at all.
And so I didn't mind that story arc at all. I didn't feel it was. I wouldn't have ever imagined that it wasn't in the books. Like, I felt like it was well done.
Good. No, yeah.
Not saying like I necessarily enjoyed seeing her marry Ramsay Bolton. So obviously, I don't think any of us would enjoy that, but it just felt like another dark chapter in the many dark chapters in this series.
And it's like one of the, if not the single worst, which is pretty terrible because she goes through, and then sure, season 6 and 7, she's kind of on her road to rebuilding and becoming a really powerful figure, which is great.
And they do tie it back into like it helps her become a stronger person.
Yeah, totally. So that's why, I mean, without knowing how things go down in the books, it can work.
We'll let that one slide.
Thank you. Oh, I was just going to ask you a quick question. So, what do you think of Stannis' death? Just a little intercession here.
That's a good question. I mean, I was always conflicted about Stannis. I get the feeling a lot of people were.
Yeah, he's like, I would say he's like the biggest character who's the single like most divisive character in the entire series.
So on the one hand, like I was rooting for him at the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Is that the correct name for it? Yeah. Just because obviously anyone's better than Joffrey at that point. Yeah. And he has an incredibly devout following among his people. So it does make you seem like he is a good leader.
He's fair. He's honest.
Fair and honest. And he's the only one who comes to the aid of the Night's Watch when they're under attack by the Wildlings. So it seems like he is focused on doing what's best for the kingdom. So that was one of the main things that kind of like really endeared me to him, even though that was later on down the road. But after you see him kill his daughter, and you just see him, like, even I think inside the episode, part like the directors were talking about how like you just saw him like talk about the history of his daughter and how like everyone just said he should let her die, and he like goes out of his way to save her. Like, you think he's like this great father figure because of that, and then you see him burn his daughter at the stake, and it's hard to watch. And it's like when his death happens, you're kind of done with his character by that point, but you still root for him over Ramsay.
Oh, totally, absolutely, yeah. And that's another thing, I mean, about this show is like there's so like it's not like a good side and a bad side. It's like this house hates this house, these people hate these people. Like,
and going back to the lore, like there's good reasons.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, Stannis is a character that you could be rooting for. Robb is a character that you probably are rooting for, and they don't like each other. They kind of hate each other. You kind of like Renly, you kind of like Robb, but they're also on opposite sides. So it's like there's a lot of different sides. It's like a star or like a hexagon rather than like two sides. And that's something that's really interesting too. I also like when there's a lot of different sides where it's not just like all these people versus all these.
It's
people.
Not black and white.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
A lot of gray that these characters can fall into, and especially in all the conflicts. It's not just one side's right, one side's
totally.
wrong.
Yeah, every character, every decision, all of that. Also, but with going back to Stannis' death, like something that I was always so unsure about was because you kind of establish in Game of Thrones specifically this kind of rule of like, if you don't see them actually like die, like if you don't see their head get chopped off, or you don't see them choke on poison and like stop moving, like it's hard to believe that they're actually dead. And they don't show him actually die. They show the last shot is Brienne swinging her sword. That's it. you don't see it hit him. So like I think a lot of other people also I really did think that he was still alive. Like I was like, no, he's not dead because they didn't show it, but he is dead. Like in the show, like he never comes up again, and he is
at least not yet.
Oh yeah, maybe. I mean, Brienne would be the only one who'd know. Like she was the only one, but I'm pretty sure he's dead. Like
I mean, I don't know how. I mean, like you said, we never see him dead, so of course he could. There's always.
I
that
really
chance,
thought he wasn't dead, but
I don't think there's any way Brienne doesn't kill him.
Yeah.
Unless they made some sort of deal. But
and I don't think they did. I do think she did. I mean, she did kill him, but like the thing is that confused me is like why did the people who made the show choose to not show it? Like they've shown literally everything else. They've shown the worst of the worst in this show. Like I don't understand.
All the direwolves dying.
Oh yeah, if you can watch a direwolf get stabbed to death by like or White Walkers, whatever happened there, like come on, like you're not going to show. Yeah, I don't know.
It's funny. It's like, yeah, you're sad while the character dies, but like I find myself sad like when one of the wolves dies. Like after the red wedding, I'm like, okay, at least the wolf can still get out. Like Arya can go there and save the wolf, and then you just see all.
This show is not nice to any of the wolves from the get go because immediately, like one of the like first 4 episodes. Ned has to kill. It's okay. It's just terrible. But yeah, we won't get into that because that could be another episode. What we think of the wolves and how they're treated. Where's Ghost? Right? Jason asked me that. Is Ghost still alive? Like, isn't that sad that he had to ask that? You don't see him at all in the last season. Okay, we'll move on.
And that's like one of my favorite things. Like throughout the series, like they make sure like to have the like especially Ghost like in there throughout, like to show them it's not just like they make comments about, but you never see them.
It's not like.
I think they're probably fan favorites, the direwolves.
Definitely. Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know anything about the fandom of this show.
A lot of people were pretty upset. I mean, myself included. Ghost. And it, they give the reason, like budgetary reasons. The direwolves apparently do cost a lot of money for the CGI.
Can you just cut out like 3 sex scenes and give us the direwolf? I'm just saying.
3 nude scenes. There's a few body parts we don't need to see in there. There's, Samuel Tarly. Does he need to exist? Okay.
All right, let's move on to our final point about what we think makes this show so good.
Yeah, so here we're talking about evil characters and villains and how pretty much all the characters in this show are relatable. You can pretty much feel for mostly any of the characters and understand where they're coming from and, understand to some degree like why the bad characters are doing bad things or good things, but also why certain good characters do, because there are characters who are fan favorites or who are good guys who do very questionable things, and you kind of understand. Like, I love how it's set up from the get-go of this series. The one of the very first scenes is Ned executing a guy because he deserted, and it's probably not something Ned wants to do, but as the, honorable and the leader and all that, he has to kind of show his, he has to exert that.
I mean, this guy's, you see him fight the White Walkers, you don't really know what
sure,
White Walkers are at this point, but he just saw something very terrible and he was put to death for running away from
it is in some ways an injustice because the guy was actually telling the truth, and he actually, you could say, ran away for a good reason. But, the laws dictate that he should be killed. And this is something that follows the characters pretty much throughout their lives. Like, particularly, I mean, Bran sees it, so, he hasn't really used that yet. But Rob and John, both, they have moments in their storylines where they have to pretty much do that. Like, Rob has to behead this guy. And then also John, he ends up beheading that other guy, too.
Behead or hang?
Well, Janos Slynt, the guy who's a real douche to him. The bald guy.
Oh, yeah.
So they both have like these.
The guy who technically betrayed Ned. As well. Yeah.
I mean, well, the difference there is that John probably took some pleasure in doing that, but like he didn't. He chose to. He was about to hang.
Like, you want to mess with me?
Pretty much.
You killed my father. Like, you want to do this to me?
And so those are just a couple of good examples, but there are a lot of other examples where there's characters you like and they do pretty bad things, but even though you might not agree with what they're doing, you can understand it, right?
Yeah. And my main example for that was Tyrion when he kills his lover. Shay. I don't know anyone's names. I mostly refer to titles. So
what do you think of her? She's someone else who could be seen as cringy the way she
really.
Like, sometimes, like I didn't mind her. I thought she was sweet.
I mean, I liked her too. I didn't get the cringy thing, especially because you really got the feeling in the show that she really loved Tyrion. I don't know if that was that way in the books, but.
In the books, I think it's more clear. She did act like she loved him, but I don't.
But you don't think she actually did? But in the show, it definitely portrays her as really loving him and wanting to run away with him.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it makes it all that more sad when you see Tyrion walk in, and this is after the trial, after she's already lied to get him executed
to his face in front of everyone.
In front of everyone,
lied. Yeah.
And then she she's in bed she's in his father's bed, in Tywin's bed, and so she's obviously been sleeping with him, and then she gets up and says, "Oh, is that you, my lion?" Which is something she always said to Tyrion, which gives the impression that it wasn't just like a one-night stand, or just like that they have some sort of relationship, even though Tywin doesn't feel anything for that. There's been this ongoing relationship between them.
Not only that, but Tywin makes it explicitly clear, like, well, he seems to, like, that he hates prostitutes or hates and so that just makes it even, like, there's so many layers to why that's a terrible scene and a terrible moment, like terrible in the sense that you feel terrible about it. It's well done, but it's terrible.
And so, like, Tyrion, who has a lot of people's favorite characters, you see him strangle his ex-lover, Shay, I know her name now. And you understand why he did it. Like, it doesn't make you be like, oh, I can't stand Tyrion now. Like, you still like him as a character. You still understand why he's doing it. Not saying everyone should go out there and strangle your ex-lovers. Not that I would condone.
There are a couple people we hope are not watching this. Sorry.
But again, like, the show just does a great way of making it seem like a gray area, not a black and white.
Yeah, totally.
Wrong, right? Just you understand his motivations and understand why, and it doesn't necessarily make you like him less.
Dany crucifies people and burns people alive. I mean, you can't really say there's big arguments around that, but that's another.
You can get into arguments with all of these. I'm sure there are.
I feel like every single character has, like, at least one. Every single important quote unquote good character has at least one, like, terrible thing that they've done. And that kind of speaks to the world, where it's like, this is such a gruesome world where you have to sometimes do whatever it takes to survive. I think and we'll try not to get too much into this as well, but, like, one of the core themes of this series is survival.
Right.
Bran infiltrates, that's not the right word, that's not the best word, takes over Hodor's mind without his, like, he just, that's, like, a terrible thing to do too. That's a pretty, every single character has at least one horrible thing that they've done. Jaime pushed a kid out a window. Okay, we can list them all.
Jaime is, like, the first character in the show that, like, you end up hating. And I actually kind of like him as a character now.
At the end of season 1, you, like, hate Jaime. You, like, he fought Ned Stark. Remember, like, he was about to. There were so many things he did in season 1 that you just. And then by season 7, you're like, oh we love this guy. It can turn you around so fast.
And now Cersei's everyone's least favorite character.
And she was never anyone's favorite. Well,
even though you still feel sympathy for her, like, she goes on a lot of tangents about loving her kids, and I'm sure that's true in her own way. But, like, the biggest time you feel sympathy for her is, like, when she's a prisoner of the Sparrows.
Yeah.
You legitimately feel sorry for her and are kind of rooting for her against the High Sparrow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you feel, and that's why the big moment where she blows everything up is kind of like a mixed bag, is it's like, she did finally put an end to the whole Faith Militant, but, she also killed
a lot of
her
people,
uncle and Marjorie and a bunch of innocent people.
But mostly Marjorie. It's always sad when one of the hot girls on the show dies. That moment of silence.
Marjorie was great, though. She's a really good character.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to move on to our 3 favorite and our 3 non-favorite characters.
This is a tough one.
And we're also going to, because 2 of our least favorite characters would have been Ramsay Bolton and Joffrey, we're doing non-them least favorite characters to make it a little more interesting.
For our least favorite characters, we're doing non-Ramsay, non-Joffrey least favorites, because it's so easy. I mean, Joffrey's probably everyone's least favorite character. I mean, Ramsay, maybe it's more debatable. Like, he's one of those maybe you love to hate or whatever. But anyways, we're not talking about them because they're pretty obvious. So, I don't know. What do you want to start with?
We can start with our 3 favorite characters. I think my favorite character is Jon. I think mostly because while most of the Starks have they've gone through a lot of changes. Like, Ned's, the thing that led to his death was he was honor bound and always focused on the honorable thing, even if that meant endangering his life. And so you see, like, Sansa and Arya, while they're still good people and still honorable, they become, like, kind of more ruthless and cunning.
Yeah, totally.
Because they have to stay alive. Yeah. They would have died a long time ago if they weren't that way. Whereas Jon, he's almost kind of like the successor to Ned in that he's still mainly he doesn't have that cunning side to him, that ruthless side. I mean, I guess you do see him hang that little boy who stabbed him in the heart. But for the most part, he's kind of honor bound.
That's another thing, though. I think it's maybe justified is not the right word, but in killing those people that he hanged, like, it was like, this is the rule. This is like, he follows the, like, kind of the rule of the land or the laws of the land. Like, he's like, okay, these people betrayed their Lord Commander, and by law, like, they need to be executed. So,
right. And you see him like with like going against the Night's Watch to try to rescue the wildlings. This is something that he probably knows will lead to his death. Or at least he knows everyone will hate him for it, but he does anyway because he knows it's the right or the honorable thing to do. He's come to realize they're just people. They're not evil. Even though many wildlings have done terrible things, raided villages, plundered villages.
Yep.
That there's hundred thousand of them or whatever, and he fell in love with one. He knows there's good people in there. He doesn't want to see them die, and so he's willing to put everything on the line to save them. One, because it's out of necessity, but also I think because he knows it's the right thing to do. So even though a lot of the other characters kind of grow in that way, I still think it's cool to see one Stark, even though he's technically not Ned Stark.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it too. Is like he's one of the most like Ned, but he's not actually. He's the one who's not.
He's not Ned Stark's son.
Yeah.
My other favorite characters are Arya and Robb. She's just, I don't know, really cool.
Yeah,
really
yeah,
badass.
Sure. Yeah,
I don't know.
Totally.
She's the one who gets revenge on Walter Frey. She has a really interesting storyline. It's always sad to see her, like, she's the farthest away from the other Starks. She's in Bravos for a while, and especially since we missed so many times them getting reunited in the first 5-6 seasons. It's hard to see her go away, but she becomes this. She was always a tomboy, and I don't know. You get to see her grow a lot and become this very dangerous person. I just really like her. And lastly, like Robb, mostly just because there's he's cool. There's this one line where after Catelyn agrees.
Jason, be honest, it's because he's hot.
Okay. After Catelyn agrees to have him marry one of Walter Frey's daughters, Robb's reaction is like, did you at least see them? Which probably would have been my reaction, which tells you how shallow I am. But I'm just kind of like, I identify with Robb a lot. It's kind of hard to put him on this list because he's only in the first 3 seasons, but I still liked him a lot. Again, he was probably the most like Ned.
Yeah, totally. He totally learned from him too. I mean, it's like the biggest turning point for him was when he had to kill the Karstark guy, and
right.
It sucks because with a lot of the Starks, well, the ones that are maybe you could say most like Ned, Robb, Jon, and Ned himself, oftentimes their downfall is like their own like honor or their own like things. They kind of lead to their own deaths, you could say, which is sad.
And a lot of times you can say, oh, that's like a character flaw led to death, but at the same time you can say it's a strength. Like they do these things despite knowing the dangers it brings.
It introduces a lot of good kind of moral or ethical or philosophical questions in the show, which is another great thing about the show. It's like, is it worth it to like survive in this world if you have to be this type of person, if you have to be manipulative or that's a question there's no right or wrong answer to that, but it's like, is it worth it to be a certain way, quote unquote, a terrible person if it means you can survive? And
correct.
For Ned, I think he would say no. I think he would much rather die than give up his values.
He had that cool line, like not right before he died, but like when he's in jail, he's talking to Varys, and Varys talked about how he could have been king or whatever, and how Ned probably had a lot of regrets, and that's just like, I do have a lot of things I regret in life, but not taking the throne, that's not one of them.
Yeah, definitely. It shows a lot about his character. So Ned's a great character. We could talk a lot about him too, even though
if he had stayed alive longer, he would have been on this list. Let's hear your 3 favorites now.
Sure. So I'm gonna try to cheat a little. I mean, I think I have a lot of similar favorites to you. Well, I would say my number 1 is probably Jon as well. I'll try not to reinstate.
I'm scared saying that. I feel like George R.R. Martin's gonna listen to this and be like, I know who's dying next.
Right. Well, he already died once.
He doesn't come back this time.
I might say my second favorite is Daenerys. Now, as someone who has experienced this series in a different medium.
Still counts. Take a drink.
I don't think that one counts. I'm going to say that one doesn't count. Some of the other ones will, but anyways. What I like, and as someone who has studied literature and blah, 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 the parallels between these two characters and how they both really, like...
Jon and Dany?
Yeah, Jon and Dany. Like, this is their story, and it's a song of ice and fire. He's the ice, she's the fire. I mean, there's a lot of ways to interpret that.
He's the wolf, she's the dragon.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, gotta
love it. Okay, we can stop there.
Yeah, there's no more. Okay, but they both have pretty similar arcs, and like the probably goal of the series is for them to converge and meet somehow in some way.
In more ways than one.
Physically. Okay, so yeah, and then they're gonna walk in holding hands, and Bran's gonna be like, you guys are just friends, right?
You guys are waiting until marriage, right?
That's one awkward
Right.
conversation for everyone in the room. Okay. So John's like, oh, Sam, you're not going to believe it. I have this super hot girlfriend now.
Brand, you have to meet my girlfriend. We totally did it.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So you're talking about you like Danny.
Yeah, I like the parallel. So, they're both characters who start from a very low point. Some lower than others, sure, but they start at the very low point. They both work their way up and grow themselves. Their experiences really influence their growth, and I'm not going to spend too much time. I could probably spend a lot of time talking on that, but their arcs are very similar, and I do appreciate and enjoy that. And they both have similar arcs. They both make, I don't want to say they make similar decisions, but they both make very difficult decisions. They both learn. They both fail. They both grow as leaders, as humans, as whatever. I also like kind of a specific parallel how they both kind of live with and experience life with kind of a very different type of people, like, Jon with the wildlings, Daenerys with the Dothraki.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah, and they both kind of take them in. They both kind of, even though everyone else around them, like, thinks they're savages and, is against them, they both kind of see them for, I guess, maybe what they are, and see them for the humans.
Daenerys even embraces her titles as Khaleesi.
Yeah, totally. She embraces that culture, and to some degree Jon does too, and that's kind of a really awesome and interesting parallel. And there's a lot more that I could go into, but I just wanted to touch on those for sure. And then these are probably, well, I think without a doubt, the two most important characters in the series, and just kind of seeing how they both move through the series with their ups and downs and get to the very end where they come to a head. Maybe they'll both end up together. I, again, don't feel that they needed to be related, or even if she was Rhaegar's cousin, or I don't know. There's so many different.
They've been cousins, second cousins, or something. Yeah.
I mean, even then, but yeah, whatever. I don't know. I won't try to dwell on that too much. But anyways, I guess, this is kind of cliche. I would say, I guess one of my other top 3 favorite characters would be Tyrion. He is just a super enjoyable character in the TV series. Just anytime he's on screen, you are engaged, you're interested. He makes you laugh. He makes you really feel for him. He's someone who he has done, as we talked about, he's done his share of kind of very questionable or terrible things, but he also has had a pretty rough life. Sure, he's super wealthy and he grew up in one of the most powerful families of all time, but he was
also grew up despised by everyone.
Yeah, exactly, despised by everyone, including that very wealthy and powerful family, which is, obviously will take its toll, and he's probably gone through a lot of trauma in his life. So you really feel for him, but
he beats starving every winter 90% of the families.
True. He's had his own experiences to go through and learn from, and it's cool that I like that he's kind of the mediator between Jon and Daenerys, because he befriended Jon in the earlier seasons, and then he's kind of Daenerys's pretty much top tier advisor,
her hand.
Yeah, but yeah, so Tyrion's awesome too. Again, it feels cliche to say those are my 3 favorite, at least in the TV series. When we talk about the books, we'll get I'm just kidding. But yeah, in the TV show, those are probably my 3 favorite characters. Now let's get to our least favorite.
And again, non-Ramsay, non-Joffrey least favorite characters.
Because those would probably be our top 2 for sure.
For me, we'll probably get more into these with our character-specific episodes, but most hated for me was Cersei. She's, terrible, and she prides herself on being smart and, loving at the same time. I don't believe that. So I just... Again, there are times I feel sorry for her, but at the same time, I just don't think she's likable, and she's a very terrible person. My second least favorite character is Samwell Tarly.
Rant time. You unlocked the Samwell Tarly rant.
Achievement.
Achievement unlocked.
Again, he's not an unlikable character. I don't know if that's the way to phrase it.
Sure.
He's just not likable either, in my opinion.
He's not unlikable. He's just not likable.
I don't like him for lack of being likable.
I'm lost.
If that's a thing. He's... I don't know. I just find him really annoying. If he was just a smaller character, smaller player, played a smaller part...
Don't fat shame.
I'm sorry. Is it bad? Am I a bad person? When his dad was fat shaming him, I was kind of happy and I had a smile on my face.
Yeah, you're a bad person.
I'm a bad person.
But his storyline's pretty boring.
Okay, it's just I mentioned earlier. The one of the best things about this show is all the storylines are interesting, and each one's good as the next. Except for
there's one.
Just whenever it's Sam and like Gilly,
Gilly
and Little Sam, it's just I don't know. I kind of tune out and I'll go on my phone, play solitaire or something. On the phone, I don't have like a deck of cards.
It's like get it out, let's shuffle.
Probably my third least favorite character is probably Alistair Thorne, just because honestly John's my favorite, and so
that's the reason.
I almost said Jan. Jan from Brady Bunch is my favorite character.
Ew.
Yeah, just anyone who betrays John is gonna be in my least favorite group.
But Sam loves John, and John loves Sam, and he's how.
There's more to the show than just John.
Well put. All right, so he was rooting for Sam's father tearing into his son that he hates, and he was rooting for Alistair Thorne getting hanged.
I swear I'm not a terrible person. I just come off that way.
Okay, so I want to say first, like all these characters, pretty much all the characters in the TV series are great actors. Like these are all excellent performances. So I just want to kind of like throw that in there. And this is not in any particular order, but I would say my top three, or three characters that I am least fond of. I am also, I would say, least fond of Cersei. Now, I find her to be a really interesting character, and actually, I find her point of views and her story arcs to be very interesting as well. Like they're one of my some of my favorites in the later parts of the series.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, very very interesting. And so she's a great character. The actor Lena Headey, portrays her really really well. It's just someone that like by where we are in the show, you just can't like. There's probably nothing about her that's like justifiable. Like I can't say that, I guess, but like basically where we are in the show, you just don't like her anymore. Like maybe there was a time where you kind of felt for her, like maybe season 5 in particular, when she's in prison and getting her hair cut off, all that stuff. She has to do the walk of shame. That's all pretty bad. But at the same time, like she's done so much wrong to other people, to the greater realm. She's just a terrible person.
Very selfish.
Absolutely terrible. A great villain to love. Or love to hate, you could say, I guess. But like,
I don't have that love to hate vibe.
Yeah,
I have that with like Tywin.
With Tywin's easy love to hate.
I feel like I had that with someone else. Oh, Littlefinger, that was the other guy I love to hate.
Good.
But Cersei, I did not have the love to hate. I just had the hate with a little sympathy thrown in.
A little bit, just a tiny drop. But yeah, she's very selfish, and just nothing about her as a person, as an individual, is likable. Like you would never want to be anywhere near her. And
Sir
then
Peter Baelish. I know someone's name. Littlefinger.
Oh yeah, you remembered it. It's because he's one of your faves. Problematic faves. Okay. Samwell Tarly is another one that I'm going to talk about, where he's another one similar to Jason's, where his storylines were just I just found them to be pretty boring. The whole like training to be a maester, and like he's a character that has some growth, which is interesting. I feel like I don't want to kind of rip him up too much, but I just really did find his storylines often just boring, and when those did come up in the show and the books, I was less intrigued than anything else.
It's like, oh, we have all these warring kings and houses, and we have
this guy
Sam. Let's throw him in there.
He's gonna complain. He's gonna go off somewhere and read a book. He's gonna clean up some vomit or some poop.
He's going to reload crossbows during a fight.
Yeah, so we both hate Sam. And then another character that I really didn't like was probably Grand Maester Pycelle. What is there to say about him? He's kind of a douche too, and he doesn't move anything along. He's kind of, it's interesting the situations around him and how like Cersei kind of like uses him in the beginning, but then when she's kind of done using him, like when he doesn't have any value, she kind of hates him too. So he's one of those like by the end of his life, pretty much everyone hates him, which is kind of sad, but he totally earns it. He's also a real douche to Ned a lot of the time when in the earlier seasons.
That earns you a big black no in my book.
And to Tyrion, yeah. But anyways,
black mark in my book.
Pycelle is someone that, I just really don't like. And there's a lot of characters that I had to try to think about. I guess another one that's pretty hateable is Randall Tarly, although Jason rooted for him more than he rooted for some of the best characters.
I swear I'm not a bad person.
But yeah, so those are our thoughts on characters. Again, we'll probably have our own episode dedicated specifically to characters where we'll go in more depth, and we will, or at least I will, sound a lot smarter than I did for this one. But, just wanted to get those thoughts out.
I thought you sounded very smart.
Thank you. You don't sound sarcastic at all.
Really? Oh, I need to work on that. Okay.
All right. So, favorite scenes. We'll talk next about just some of our favorite moments in the show, because that's something. I mean, this is a show about characters and moments.
Yeah. Again, one of the best things about the show is even like the sad moments, like they can still be the best ones. Like I think my favorite
Red Wedding. No.
no, except for that one. Although that was a beautiful, brilliant moment.
It was well done.
How it was set up.
It was just crushing.
I think my favorite. It's hard to call this a scene since I think it took like an entire episode. Was the Watchers on the Wall battle where the Wildling army is attacking the wall. Just the entire battle. I mean, obviously you can tell that so much effort is put into it.
Yeah.
A lot of high budget.
That was a huge one.
And for me, like what really solidified as my favorite moment was just that final scene with Sam. Not Sam. Oh god. Oh god.
He emerges triumphant.
If Sam had died, definitely number one. With John and I'm gonna need help with the name. Egret.
Yeah.
Egret.
Let me write it out. It's spelled weirdly too, but
Ygritte. Okay, Egret. You know, when they're in the courtyard, they're fighting, and then Sam. Why do I keep saying Sam? John and Egret.
I think Loki wants what happened between John and Egret in the cave to happen between John and Sam. Just kidding.
John and Egret see each other, and you know, like she has the bow pointed at him. She's talked nonstop about putting an arrow in him for like the last few episodes now. You're just wondering what's going to happen. You're kind of always having hope that like, you know, the Night's Watch wins the battle, but then John's able to save Egret and they can have some happiness together. But then you just see that one bastard kid who put a knife through John's heart, you know, also has to literally that was literally, this is figuratively here, put another arrow through his heart by killing Egret. But then they have this beautiful moment, like he's holding her in his hands, and I know the directors and the producers talking about like they don't like slow-mo, they think it's cheesy, but like this is like the one instance in the show where like they had slow motion, like you just see John holding Egret as she's dying, and you know, the battle going on in the background. It's like this really touching moment. Is my favorite moment in the series.
Yep, great, very, very good, loved it.
I think my second favorite scene was when Sansa kills Littlefinger, or I guess Arya kills Littlefinger, but Sansa turns on him, just because the whole season kind of been setting up this tension between Sansa and I'm going back and forth.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what to call her.
And Lord Peter Baelish.
Yeah.
Or setting up drama between Sansa and Arya. You literally could imagine with everything that's happened in this series that they would turn on each other. That two Starks would turn on each other. And so like Sansa calls in Arya, and she walks in and she's like, "No, I accuse you of murder of treason. How do you respond?"
Lord Baelish.
Lord Baelish. And it's just like this beautiful twist. Like kind of like the Red Wedding. It's been perfectly set up as like this happy moment.
Yeah.
In 1 second it turns to sadness. Like this could have been a bad scene. In 1 second it turns to joy. Like this character who's responsible for Ned's death, responsible for so much that's happened to Sansa. So much of the evil that's happened in the kingdom. He's been manipulating everything.
Almost everything, yeah.
And then just you're not expecting. That's the best part of this. You're not expecting it to go bad, and then the show turns it around. I have a tie for third, which would be the Battle of the Bastards. Just, you know, an amazing fight scene with Jon, my man, and also Tyrion's trial was a really interesting scene. I think you like that one as well. It's hearing him defend himself. All the drama that was going on, all the backstabbing that was going on. When you know Tyrion is innocent.
Yeah.
And seeing his father probably know that too. I think it's established later on, but at the time you're pretty sure Tywin knows he's innocent too. That's still all that's going on. So yeah, you can go ahead now.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the Tyrion's trial, since that's also one of my favorites. It's not my single favorite, but it's one of my top 3 favorites. And since you just talked about it, I guess I'll kind of go continue on with it. For me, I mean, just, a lot of betrayal, you know, the way that the counterplay between Tywin and Tyrion, and just, it's a really heartbreaking sequence, because people that clearly trusted, or Tyrion clearly trusted throughout the series, like Varys and Shae, for example, you know, they're both on testimony against him, right? They both testify against him, and both of their testimonies are pretty heartbreaking. I mean, Shae's is obviously the worst because,
yes.
And you even see it in his face. But I think the actor's portrayal and Tyrion's like just reaction to all of that is just one of the best emotional moments in the entire series. In a series with a lot of excellent characters and a lot of really intense, high-budget battles and fantasy elements, this is just these huge character moments are some of the best and most gripping.
Well said. See, you sounded very smart there.
Thank you. Well,
did that come out as sarcastic?
Oh God, I don't know anymore. All these years, you've told me I sound smart. My favorite scene probably in the entire series, because I remember feeling like super into it. Like I was like, wow, was the big battle between Daenerys and Jaime. Basically, in season 7, episode 4, where, Jaime and the Tarleys, their troops are trying to get the gold or the loot or whatever from Highgarden to
the booty.
Yeah, they're trying to get that booty they're trying to get the loot to King's Landing, right? It's a bunch of like crops and like I don't know money or it's something important.
I think they'd already given the money to
that's right.
Iron Bank,
That's right.
But I think they probably looted a lot of the food that King's Landing would need to survive the winter.
Good, so it's super valuable, and then. They hear a noise and then they look and they just see the Dothraki coming at them, and which is insane because it's like this is the first time any of these people have ever seen a Dothraki in their life, and they're known for being like extremely potent on the battlefield, and then like they're terrified of that, like get information, and then on top of that they hear like this giant like screech or something, and over the hills flies a gigantic dragon, and how just the look on Jaime's face, like everything about that
we're screwed.
As an understatement, yeah. Everything about that entire scene was just amazing. Like I was just super into it, and it was intense. And it's another one of those battles where you don't know who you want to win or you don't know what you want to happen, because you care about Jaime at this point, but you also care about Daenerys obviously and her dragon, and you like Bronn, but like when he's about to shoot the dragon, you're like, okay, don't please, maybe. But yeah,
give him a pass.
I could talk about that scene for a long time, but amazing, very well done.
I will say the one thing I don't like in that scene is when Daenerys burns all the wagons, which probably have food in them.
Yeah,
you're coming here to rule these people. You want to have a good impression, and so burning food that people probably need to survive winter.
Sure.
Probably not a good first impression.
That's very fair. That's totally fair. But maybe she doesn't. She probably doesn't have 100% control over her dragon. I don't know. Maybe she told him to burn it all.
I felt like she was aiming for it on purpose.
Okay. That's possible. And that's a good point of discussion, point of debate. So yeah, amazing moment. Love it, absolutely. And one of my other favorites of the entire series would probably be the Battle of Blackwater, because again, that's another huge battle, very well done, very well handled. You're intrigued the entire time through. Now, another reason is because, yet again, this is an instance where you like characters on both sides, and you also maybe hate characters on both sides. You really like Davos, and he's one of the kind of central characters of this battle, and you really want him to live and succeed, and I guess you're rooting for Stannis because you hate Joffrey.
Yeah, kill Joffrey, please.
You hate Joffrey, but then you also really like Tyrion, and Tyrion's the one who kind of orchestrated the whole plan against Stannis' fleet. So you're like, I really want Tyrion to succeed, but I also want Joffrey to die, and Cersei's a brat, and but then it also beyond that, it also shows like the behind the scenes kind of thing, because it shows Cersei and Sansa,
all the women hiding.
Yeah, it shows them all and like what they're thinking, and like how Cersei's trying to she's really kind of pessimistic, but she's really trying to be, I guess, a realist in that situation as well. She's about to kill her son when she thinks the city's lost, and then Tywin comes in and saves the day. And I don't know, just the way that whole entire episode and sequence plays out. I just thought there's a lot to love about it, from a character level, from a action level, from a lot of different levels.
Yeah, and definitely, they could have gone a whole different way with that battle. I mean, they could have had Stannis win and take the whole series in a completely different direction.
Sure.
So that was another draw to that scene, is it could have changed the entire series, and you knew everything that was on the line when you're watching that. Despite
Tyrion's best efforts, and he did a really good job of orchestrating this really excellent plan that set Stannis' forces back a big way. Stannis was about to win. Stannis would have won if it wasn't for Tywin. That is a huge turning point for the series as well, because Tywin being in King's Landing is pretty important for the show and for the...
Yeah, because it's kind of like, I don't know if he's the main antagonist at this point, and now he's actually going to be the actual hand and the one kind of running the show, since Joffrey never really runs the show. He just does kind of evil stuff.
And Tywin also, by being the Hand, he now gets a nice little office with a nice little stationery, which allows him to write letters to characters like Walder Frey and Roose Bolton. So maybe if Tywin
I see where you're going with this.
Maybe if Tywin hadn't shown up and gotten a nice office with stationery and ink, maybe he could have never orchestrated the Red Wedding, because that's how he did it, was by sending like letters to like Roose Bolton, and that's not something that they ever explicitly say, but like I think that's how he.
I don't see where you're going with this.
I don't either anymore.
No, that's a good point. Good point.
It's kind of jokey, like, but anyway. Okay, let's go.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
I think Tywin would live by that.
Think about that one. Think about that.
Tywin's a smart enough guy to like live by that, you know, even though he's a good fighter and a good like strategist.
I guess the crossbow is mightier than the pen.
The crossbow is mightier than the toilet.
We're keeping that in, right? That's staying in?
Yeah, we'll see. We're already a little over.
Yeah. Do we want to just skip this since we're kind of over? Or do you really want
What
to
do you think? I feel like it'd be kind of important to say.
Maybe very, like, kind of trim it down a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so the last thing we'll talk about here towards the end of our show, I'm not sure how long this will end up being because I'm going to probably cut down some points, but we want to maybe establish a few predictions for the final season. This is it. Final season of the show, which is probably coming out in probably around a year. And
so obviously one of the things we want to predict is what happens with Jon and Daenerys' relationship, but also character deaths and what happens with all these couple last story arcs and battles. I had a couple different things I could see them doing with Jon and Dany's relationships. Either one of them could die and the other one will rule the Seven Kingdoms. I could see them staying together, married and ruling the Seven Kingdoms. I could also see the Bran revelation like destroying their relationship, and then after they deal with Cersei, they become enemies at that point.
That'd be interesting, but I don't think there's enough.
There's no time for that.
Left.
I don't see that. So honestly, between all those, I don't know what I see going down.
Yeah.
I do think one of them will die.
Okay.
Just because why not? It's this show. But yeah, how about you?
I feel like we should buckle in for this final season because I do think a lot of very important and very nice characters will end up dying. Some that are a little more minor, like maybe someone like Brienne dies,
or Davos,
who are likable but not central. And then you're gonna lose two at the least. At the absolute least, we're gonna probably lose two main characters.
I need Jon, Arya, and Ghost to survive.
That's it. That's all you care
about.
That's all
I need.
That's all you need. It's going to be Samwell's going to end up being the one who survives.
Samwell rules the Seven Kingdoms. Oh no.
Yeah, I really feel like Sansa could die. At the same time, the show, I feel
she's like the least likely to, but I see what you mean.
Yeah. I don't know if Bran would die. Like, I feel like he can see his death coming. I don't know. I feel like
his powers are still kind of vague-ish.
Yeah. Okay, if there's one character that I may be more certain on dying, I think it would be Jaime, because I think that would be a big, huge turnaround from the very beginning of the series where you pretty much hate him, and then at the very end, he's someone that you don't want to die, and if he does die, you'd probably be pretty upset because he's a cool character now.
What about your other prediction with Jaime?
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty popular theory that Jaime will actually be the one to end up killing Cersei. That would be a really nice kind of poetic ending to their relationship as well. It's like there's a lot of reasons why that would be a really satisfying end, but it would be tragic, but also
be stabbing her in more ways than one.
We
had a lot of sexual remarks in this episode.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. It's Game of Thrones. Can't be surprised.
Yeah. Okay, who's gonna sit on the Iron Throne? Realistically and not realistically. So yeah, who realistically is like you think is absolutely gonna be the final ruler?
Jon and or Daenerys, happy ending.
Okay.
Sad ending, it remains Cersei.
Okay. I would find that to be somewhat interesting. I don't like Cersei, but I think that would be like an interesting spin on things, because usually it's like at the end of a big epic series, of course, the good guy is the winner, and so it'd be interesting if like somehow she ends up living and still ruling over. I don't think that'll happen.
The other thing I could think of is just with all their character arcs, I think Sansa's been built up the most to be the most effective ruler.
Cool. That'd be nice.
And their whole family unit would almost make like a good ruling class. Like Jon he's still the honorable one. He could fill like that Ned Stark role and be the hand. Bran, can see everything. He'd kind of be like a good Varys character. Sure. And Arya, she can be like a good spy master. Assassinate people like a good Littlefinger. I don't know. Maybe I got that backwards. And she'd be a better Varys, and he'd be a better Littlefinger, middle finger.
Middle finger.
I feel like together the whole Stark family could be effective at ruling.
And that'd be cool. I could see the setup for that. I mean, she was going to be queen, just under extremely different circumstances. She would be Joffrey's wife, but she was about to be queen.
And we could see almost her kind of mirroring Marjorie's journey, as Marjorie wanted to be the queen, and so we saw her get that. And Sansa, since season 1, has wanted to be the queen.
Sure, We
could see that happen.
I like that. I mean, realistically for me, I think Jon is going to end up like the absolute king.
My man.
Because I think they do establish this in the show, like the best kings are the ones who maybe don't really necessarily want it, right? Like, and he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to be king, but he's a good ruler. Like when he has to be king, he's fair, he's just, So I think he'd be the best one, and he's the one that we're pretty much the whole entire series is setting up. This is Jon's and Daenerys' story. I mean, maybe it's one of theirs more than the other, but they are the two main characters here. They together are the Harry Potter. I always refer to Harry Potter.
The Harry Potter?
They are the Sam and, what's his name, Dylan or something? Supernatural?
Sam and Dean?
I was close. I was a couple letters. Switch the E for YL, and there you go.
Okay. It's Sam and the Dylans who are
ship them?
Jon and... No.
We should have an episode
I'm not a teenage girl.
We should have an episode where you wreck that ship.
I wreck that ship?
Because that's a pretty popular ship, right?
Yep. That is... For reasons I cannot comprehend.
I read a fanfic about Professor McGonagall and Professor Dumbledore. Don't ask why.
You're admitting to that?
I'm editing this out. If you hear it was pretty NC-17. Okay,
you're admitting to this?
If you're hearing this, I forgot to edit it out. Absolutely. This shouldn't be getting through to your ears.
Well, since we're talking about things we're going to edit out anyway, I just don't like
he's going to name one of our friends.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go.
And I think that's everything we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, totally.
Like we said, I think we're going to be doing another episode, maybe 2 episodes, where we go more into depth on the major characters and their story arcs. And so stay tuned for that. If you like this one, hope you like that one too.
Yeah. Stay tuned for it. Please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. We're trying to get the show on another podcasting service or hosting site. So be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely announce it when you do. But if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoy us at all, I'll probably post this on my personal Facebook or something, or I don't know. I'll try to get this out there somehow. And yeah, if there's other things that you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. But we also have a few things lined up, a few other series. Like we're not always going to be talking about Game of Thrones or Avatar. We definitely will be branching out. We have a lot of different things we want to talk about. So stay tuned for all that. And we're excited if you are excited, and we enjoy doing this. This is just for fun.
Yeah.
If one or two of you are enjoying this, then we've succeeded. One or two of you, aside from us, then we're succeeding.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got the two enjoying.
I'm not even sure we're both enjoying.
Are you saying you don't enjoy my rants? Is that what you're saying here?
So see you next time.
Take care.